Yep, you're coming through great, Kim.
Okay, thanks a lot. Um, yeah, I can't see my video. Can you see my video?
Yep, it's working great.
Oh, okay, excellent. Great. Thanks for that tech check there. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to our native plant landscaping webinar number 1. My name is Kim Williams, and I am the district manager for Clallam Conservation District. And we are going to have 3 webinars here in this sort of short course. And this first one is native plant landscaping design and benefits. We'll learn a little bit about how to design your landscape and the benefits of using native plants in the landscape and just doing sustainable landscaping in general. So as we go through, this is being recorded and it will be available on our website if you need to come, check back and refer to it. Or if you, know someone that might be interested, you can pass it on to them. It will be up on our website in about a week or so. And I just wanted to, as we go through this, I will pause for questions in about the middle and also at the end. And so we do ask that people put yourselves on mute, and when I start the presentation, I will turn off my video just to help save bandwidth as well. So a little bit about me. I'm Kim Williams, as I said. I have been the district manager here at Clallam Conservation District for just over a year. I am a botanist and I have worked on many large and small restoration projects. I'm a gardener, and so yeah, I'm just hopefully I can just provide some information for you to be able to design your landscape the best that you can. So let's get started, since we are past 1 o'clock. Yeah. Okay. So real quick, a little bit of background about the Conservation District. We are a subdivision of the state government established in 1959. We are here to help promote protection and sustainability and enhance natural resources. We have a great staff with a lot of technical expertise, and some of our programs do provide financial assistance for all people of Clallam County. We have many programs, and so I just encourage all of you to check us out and check out our website as well. So today we are going to be talking about sustainable landscaping, or really landscaping with native plants. And there are some basic principles to sustainable landscaping. Sustainable landscaping, it really helps to support greater biodiversity. The thing about, and it provides habitat. The thing that's happening with our landscape, our natural areas, is that they're being broken up and they're fractured and they're just being minimized. Less habitat for our pollinators and our birds and our insects. And, sustainable landscaping really helps to build the soil. Our soil is so important. It is basically, you have food or you don't have food based on your soil. And sustainable landscaping can help recharge our underground aquifers and really provide filter strips and capture stormwater, which is really important for water quality. Water conservation is one of the biggest reasons to really use sustainable landscaping. Our water resources are precious. They are, under attack right now. They're low, and water resources are in the limelight right now. And using native plants in the landscape saves money and time. These plants are naturally disease resistant, and you use less chemicals with them. And I think just getting out and knowing your local flora and fauna, you just become closer to your natural world. It just helps you to, just brings more joy into your life, helps you to slow down and see the wonders right in your backyard. So there's just so many reasons to, apply sustainable landscaping principles, and we will go over more of them today as well. So this is kind of what's happening. This is a picture of Cedars Golf Course. It's an image from Google Earth. This is in Sequim. And this is what's happening to our landscape. Everything is being fractured and broken up. There's no wildlife corridors. And you can see just the lawn, the acres and acres of lawn that people put in. Now, having wide open spaces is wonderful, and there are different ways to do it. You can see here the lawns that have been watered and the lawns that haven't been watered, and we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. But this is really just a picture of what's happening. And so when we're talking about sustainable landscaping, the top picture is pretty unsustainable. It may be beautiful. It's manicured lawns. It takes lots of chemicals, lots of water, lots of time, lots of maintenance, and it's really unsustainable. It doesn't really take care of itself at all. And the lower picture, there's really nothing there. It's just really uninspiring. It's unproductive. And, our landscape not only provides habitat, but it provides beauty for us as well. So this is kind of what we're trying to avoid. So this is class 1 or course 1 of 3 webinars. And in this course, we are going to learn how to develop a vision for your own landscape. What are your wants and needs? Why should we use native plants in the landscape? How to really take an inventory and analyze your site, analyze your built resources, kind of sheds and sidewalks, and where's your septic, and what natural resources do you already have on your property that you want to keep? Big native trees, maybe a little river or a little pond that goes through your backyard. And also we're going to take a look at the climate and microclimate of your specific place. Webinar 2 will be developing a plan. This is when we're going to dive deep into the plants, selecting the right plant for the right place. What kind of conditions do each plant need to thrive? You will learn a little bit about identifying native plants and understanding plant communities. And webinar 3, you will develop more of an implementation plan, how to take your vision and put it on the ground. You will learn about site preparation, planting tips, maintenance tips, and also we will go over some of the common problems and pests and invasive weeds that are local in the area. So this is the very first step. When you are thinking about landscaping your yard, you want to write it down. I mean, it just really helps to define things when you write it down. So what is your vision? What do you want from your landscape? Hopefully everybody is working towards low water use and low maintenance. Like that, landscaping does not have to be high maintenance. You can put native plants in and you can prune them up and shape them just like any other plant. You can let them go wild. So what other uses do you want your landscaping area to have? Do you need open space for kids and pets? Or do you want to just attract the birds and the butterflies and create wildlife, create that habitat to just have the birds singing and create that beauty? Or do you need your landscaping to screen out something, screen out a busy road or a neighbor's house or something like that? So writing down your vision is a really important part before you get started and before you start running off and buying plants. So the second step, you need to do a site analysis. So we're going to go a little bit in depth into this. you need to map your site and notice where the built sources are, your sheds, your pathways, where your drain fields are, your septic, your utilities, and also note your natural resources. What is the topography of your land? Do you have natural wet areas and dry areas? And we're going to have you look at your soils. What types of soil do you have on your property? Your type of soil really dictates the kind of plants that go in and thrive. And what native vegetation is there? Taking a look at your climate and your microclimate. Okay. Oh, great. Let me just stop that, pause that for a minute. So I really want to show this little video on how to create your base map for your property. So you want to start with your base map, and yeah, I'll just play the video and you can see how. It's a really great video, really easy way to kind of get the spacing of your property. And you want to print out several copies of your base map when you get it. I suggest 4 copies. That way you can write on your base map and you can, you know, scribble things out, write things in. Yeah, so we'll play the video.
Hello, I'm Cynthia with Localscapes, and in this video, we're going to teach you how to create a base map for your property using Google Maps. To accurately plan landscape projects, you must first get the layout, measurements, and dimensions of your property. Google Maps is a great way to do this because it allows us to not only get those dimensions, but also locate real-world elements such as existing trees without having to go outside and measure anything. To get started, go to maps.google.com, then type in your property address in the search bar in the top left corner. Once you've located the property, zoom in. In the bottom left corner, we can switch between the map view and the satellite view as needed. The map view is the easiest way to measure the property, but satellite view will come in handy when it comes time to measuring the actual house outline, as well as the real-world elements. For now, we'll start with the map view. The first thing you want to do is print a copy of the map view so that you can write your measurements directly on your map. To do this, right-click and it will bring up a submenu where you can select Print. Once you've printed a copy of the map, you want to right-click on the front right corner of our property and select Measure Distance from the submenu. This will create a starting point for the measurement. If the starting point isn't exactly where you want it, click on it and drag it around as needed. Once you have the point set, click on the back right corner of the property to create your second point. Now we have our first measurement. At the bottom of the screen, you can see a box that shows the total distance between the 2 points, but you can also see this total on your map next to your second point. This measurement isn't going to be perfectly accurate as it is just an estimate, so go ahead and round up or down as needed. It's okay if you're off a foot or 2 in your measurements, as it will be easy to adjust later, but be sure to write down each measurement on the printed map as we go along. Now, if you just go to the next point and click, it's going to give you an accumulative measurement, which is not what we want. So make sure that you're measuring each side of the property. Just click and drag the points to where you need them to measure the second side individually. Once you have the points where you need them, you can see the distance at the bottom of the screen, or again, next to the second point in your measurement. Be sure to write down the measurement of each side as you go through them. If you accidentally clear the measurement points, simply right-click and select Measure Distance again to choose new points. Once you have all of the measurements of each side of your property, right-click and in the submenu select Clear Measurement. The next thing we want to do is measure the actual house. To measure the house, we recommend that you switch to the satellite view because the map view has a very simplified shape of the house and it may not be very accurate. To switch to satellite view, click the box in the bottom left-hand corner, then right-click and select Measure Distance. This time, set your first point at the back corner of the house and your second point at the opposite back corner to measure the back side of the house. Continue to measure each side individually and be sure to write down the measurement of each side on your printed base map. Once you've measured each side of the house, the last thing you want to do is determine measurements from the house to the property line or existing elements. If you're measuring from the corner of the house to the property line, it can be tempting to measure from the corner of the house to the corner of the property. The problem with this is that it may not be a straight line, and in this program, we really have no way to determine the correct angle. As a result, the best way to determine these measurements accurately is to go straight from the side of the house to the property line at a 90-degree angle and write that measurement down. Then measure from that point to the corner of the property line and write that down. This will ensure that we have accurate measurements and that we are using the correct angles. To measure existing elements, such as trees, set your first point at the center of the tree, then measure from there to the side of the property. You can then measure from that point to the corner of the property and give yourself a pretty good idea of where that tree sits in relation to the rest of the landscape. In the bottom right-hand corner of the map, there is a view rotation setting which may help you see certain areas or elements better if you rotate your view around. If you have too much tree coverage, this technique may not work well for you, and you may have to do some measuring by hand. But it's still important to ensure you have all your needed measurements on your base map before you start your project. Once you have all of your measurements, you'll need to transfer them to a larger piece of paper so that you have a base map that's large enough to draw on. An easy way to do this is using graph paper and a scale of 1 square equals 1 foot. This is also a great time to make a few copies in case you want to change your plans later. Remember, every good landscape begins with a plan, and every good plan begins with a base map.
So that's a really great video. I've used it for my place, and it's a really great way to just get measurements so you can just really figure out, do I need to put 10 trees along that area, or do I need to put 15 trees? And it's pretty accurate. I mean, it's definitely not to the inch, but you can get a really good idea of what you need for your landscape by using that. And it's just really a great tool. It's free. And so that's maps.google.com. So when you have that base map, you're going to, like I said, make 4 or even 5 copies of it. And you're going to write a lot of notes on it to really understand your yard and your area, the place you want to landscape it. One of the things you are going to note on your base map is your soil types. There's lots of places that you can get your soil types. NRCS online, they have a web soil survey of Clallam County, and that's a really great place to get soil information. You can also go to Clallam County online, the county website, and you can also get a little bit more detailed nutrient analysis from the Conservation District. We offer soil analysis. We do soil sampling every first and third Wednesday. We take your soil sample and we send it to a lab in Portland, and they will give you a nutrient analysis. So you would need to bring in a bag of soil from the area that you want to plant. Say you want to plant hay or something, or lavender, or you want a food garden and you want to know how am I supposed to amend the soil so you can get it right. Well, you can bring soil in, and we ask that you bring in at least 3 pounds of dirt and a half a gallon of dirt. That's a whole gallon Ziploc bag, halfway filled. So several people, we have had to turn them away because they haven't brought in enough dirt. That's just how much soil or dirt that the lab needs to get an accurate analysis. So make sure you get a gallon Ziploc, at least real half full, half to 3/4 full. Because sometimes half doesn't look the same to everyone. But noticing your soil types is just a really great way to understand what kind of plants you should plant. And there are variations on your site, your own yard. So you got to note those on your map. But also one of the best ways is to go out into your yard and just dig some holes. So you want to go around to your yard if you're going to do it this way. Just dig little spots, and there are 3 main types of soil that we're looking at. We're looking at clay soil, silty loam soil, and sand and gravel soil. Now there's combinations of everything in between, but these are the 3 main types. So clay soils right here, they are really fine texture. They're really poor drainage. They hold a lot of water and high water holding capacity, and kind of hard to plant in unless you plant water loving plants. So there's not a lot of oxygen in this soil right here, but it's just good to note where it is, and you write on your base map, clay soils over here. Silty loam soils are medium texture. This is what we all would love to have. It drains somewhat well and it holds water. And this is kind of what it looks like up here. And really great soils for planting in. And then there's sandy gravel soils. They drain quickly, very coarse texture, rocky, coarse texture. They drain almost too fast, so you would want to put more drought loving plants here. And they rarely hold water. They have a very low water holding capacity. So yeah, we just encourage people to go out, take a shovel, get your hands in the dirt and check it out. And I just threw in this map to show you how varied the soils are in Clallam County. And this is just a map showing all the different kinds and levels of soils. And so there's not only varied in the whole county, but varied on your specific site as well. Then on your base map, you will also want to really take note of the climate and the microclimate of your specific yard. Take a look at the precipitation, your monthly and annual rainfall averages, your temperatures, your frost dates. I know I live up at 500-foot elevation, so I get a little colder faster than the people down lower. And we just, there's more and more weather extremes these days. So temperatures and frost dates are constantly changing. First frost dates and last frost dates. You need to just do your best and take an average of these. Just really take a look at it to know where you're at with those. Like currently, the Farmer's Almanac says for Port Angeles, the frost is usually from October 20th to March 21st, and that's for this year. That could be off according to your elevation. That's why it's really important to take a look at your very specific microclimate. And also notice the wind. Which way does the wind come from? Do you have wind currents coming through your yard? And this will are there exposed areas or protected areas? And your sun and your shade also. And sometimes this can be hard to figure out, like if you just move to a place, but do your best, just do your research, talk to your neighbors, and that might help. So here's a couple graphs about temperature and precipitation. And these are average rainfalls. There's Sequim and Port Angeles. And as you notice, rainfall is really low when the temperatures are really high. And that is also the time when we have high water usage. That's when people are irrigating their fields and watering their lawns, which, we hope that people can really change their mind about watering lawns and really just kind of, that brown is the new green. That's what we need to think when it comes to lawns. So it's just good to know what months you're going to be, using less water. You'll probably need high water, but there's some simple things you can do, such as like mulching is really a fantastic water saving way. These are the months that are just critical. And there's this really great website, findmyshadow.com. You can look at where your shadows are going to be. If I put a Douglas fir tree somewhere, or a tree that only reaches 100 feet, this is how much shadow. I'm going to have 45 feet of shadow noon on June 22nd. But noon December 22nd, this much shadow. It's a really great way to look at what will be when you are determining what plants go in and what kind of maximum height the plants will get to in the future. So with your site analysis, first you want to determine your landscape wants and needs. How much time do you spend in your landscape? Do you have kids and pets? Map your landscape, go through that exercise and get like 4 or 5 copies of a base map. Make sure to note on the base map where your septics are and utilities are as well. And you also want to, look at the nature on your site, look at the ecology of your site, what kind of soils, and write it right on your base map. And can your landscaping wants and needs be met with what nature has given you to work with? We just want to be realistic, and we want to create something easy, low maintenance, low water. So this might be a little look at what your base map might look like. Of course, you will have measurements in here all around the buildings, but you can just start putting things down. Here we go, like right here, it slopes down. Right here, we have a crabapple tree. It's about that wide. And you've done soil testing and you know that it's nitrogen deficient soil right down here. There's a dead tree right there. You just start noticing all these things, and it really helps you to make a complete plan. And dead trees, I just want to say, are excellent habitat trees. So for birds and woodpeckers. And then here you can even take it a little bit further, and like right here, like you can find areas that are open. Oh, maybe we'll put a sandbox there. Oh, this would be great for a hummingbird garden right there because it's right next to the window. We can look out. You just want to really start filling in what would be possible. And on the bottom here, they have, in the future, they want to add a window to the south room. They need more trees, conifers. You can just make little notes like that as well on your base map. And then here is just a little bit more refined plan. Okay, we've thought about it and we want to put a Japanese garden in, and with a little bench here. This is a sloping area over here on the right near the pond, and put in a little pond there would be a great low spot. So you can see that your map will just like have different stages. And as you talk to your partner, your spouse, or your kids, get their input as well. So there's kind of a general rule when doing landscaping. You want to kind of divide your property into zones or rooms. And just note that the entire property does not need to be landscaped like a city lot. Leave open areas, let there be, it doesn't have to be totally manicured everywhere. You want to restrict high maintenance and high disturbance areas to right around the house. That's where I would put the food garden, or anything that you want to plant that needs watering with a hose, like where the hose can reach probably is a good boundary. And put your lawns right there. That's where you want to mow, and that's where you're going to do your backyard entertaining. So there's that high disturbance area right around the house. And as you go out from the house, you want it to be a little less disturbance and more wild as you get away from the house. And so here's a picture of what we're kind of talking about. Right here, the high disturbance area, real close to the house. And as you move out, it's kind of a shared space with you and nature. You can start letting it to go natural. You can put in meadows or little clumps of bushes. And as you get out further, have more wild areas. but you can make room for pathways and benches and little bridges across the river, and try to keep a wild area. Try to leave a space for the birds and for the little chipmunks and for the bees to overwinter as well. Try to have a wild place. And it's easy if you have a really small lot, it's easy to just have little corners or of wild spaces. You can hide them behind, bushes. And this is kind of a side view of what I was talking about. High maintenance right around the house, and then a transition into a low maintenance wild area with low disturbance, and trees and snags. So as you think about your planting plan, you want to, identify your existing vegetation, what kind of natural native trees and shrubs you have there. And we really promote minimizing lawn area. Lawns, we'll talk about them in a little bit, but they are pretty high maintenance. You want to mimic natural habitats and group the plants according to your soil types and according to their moisture needs. Trees and shrubs, just think about deciduous trees that will throw shade during the summer, but have light coming through during the winter. And the whole point is to really create diversity, to create opportunity for our birds and our chipmunks and nesting materials and food for them as well, which is also great joy for people as well. So here's a great little bench, and I figured I would pause for questions, and you can ask them. I can read the chat. Let's see if there are any, or you can unmute yourself and ask something if you have any questions. I don't see anything in the chat. Megan, do you see anything in there? Any questions?
Nope, I think you're doing a great job. So I don't think there have been any. Oh, wait, hold on. One just came in. Did you see that, Kim?
Yeah. Will I be reviewing septic planting? Yes, I will. Not going in depth, but yeah, definitely we cover that. I think we cover it in this one. If not, I'll make sure and get to it at the end. Remind me if I don't mention it. Okay, well, let's see, anything else? Do we need a separate soil test for each area of the garden? Let's see. Megan, can you answer that one?
Sure, no problem. So if you have done anything different, like for instance, you put down a different amount of fertilizer in sections of your garden, it would be good to take a test per area. But if you've pretty much treated the whole garden the same, you can go ahead and do that. The only thing is when we do recommendations, if you have kind of varying crops out in your garden, for instance, you have caneberries in one area and blueberries in another and vegetable garden in another, you would want to do a separate soil test for each of those so you can get specific recommendations for those different crop types, if that makes sense. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, and we will discuss lawn alternatives. So we'll go over that as well in just a little bit. Great.
Are you going to talk at some point about techniques for separating deer and keeping them out in the wild area and away from the high maintenance stuff that they like to eat?
Oh boy, that was really muffled. You were coming in and out.
All right, let me say it again. At some point, are you going to talk about techniques for keeping deer out in the wild area and away from the stuff close in that they like to eat?
Yes, absolutely. So that's going to be in webinar 3. When I talk about common pests and problems, we'll definitely go over deer and some of the tactics you can take there. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to move right along here.
Oh, wait, there's one more question, I
there
think,
one
Kim.
more?
Strategies for windbreaks.
Strategies for windbreaks. Yep. That will be in the webinar 2, the right plant for the right place. That is definitely something we'll talk about. So yeah, and if you can't be there for the live webinar, it will be recorded. So yeah. So I just wanted to move along here and talk a little bit more about some of the types of gardens that we can put in. Xeriscapes and rock gardens. So put in a rock garden, they said, it'll be fun, they said. Actually, rock gardens are pretty high maintenance and they sure are beautiful, but they really do require a lot of weeding. And you know, people think, oh, rock garden, you know, that won't take much. But the way things work in the Northwest is that all of the detritus and the duff builds up a soil layer, and weeds just will grow rampant. If there is open space, weeds will come in. Any sort of open space like this open ground, this rock garden, will need to be constantly weeded. But I put this in here because I just want to show you how beautiful it is to use elements from nature, the rocks. And, you know, if you have a tiny little area, because we're all going for low maintenance, hopefully, use the rocks, use rocks and wood in your landscape. And this one on the bottom left here is not as bad because they have a nice mulch cover around their in their garden areas. And the only place they really need to worry about is the walkway. So, and you do need to mulch several times a year. It's a temporary cover. I just wanted to go over hardscapes here for a minute, and gathering areas and pathways, and you know, it's just really good to plan out your hardscapes and choose environmentally friendly hardscapes. And you know, we want to really, you know, using recycled pavers helps to reduce waste from the landfills, and also using materials that are permeable and is really, really desirable. I mean, when you are putting in hardscapes, you want to help the water to percolate through and down to the soil instead of being funneled off into a sewer system. And here's some different types of permeable pavers and walkways. So a permeable, actually there's permeable and pervious surfaces. Permeable surfaces, like the one on the top left here, are little pavers that have spaces where the water can seep down into. Like in between each of these pavers, there's just a little spot where water can percolate down and go into the soils below. Oftentimes, permeable pavement and pervious pavement needs to be prepared underground with rock. So the problem when it rains is that, and it rains on cement, it rains so much that it can't soak into the ground fast enough. And that's when the rainwater or storm water gets funneled, you know, with curbs and stuff into our stormwater systems. But if you layer it up like this a little bit underneath, then it gives a spot for the water to sit and slowly soak into the native soils. And down here, the pervious surfaces are actually concrete with little holes in them, or little crushed rock with holes in them, where the water actually goes straight through the surface and into the soils. So, you know, we all are probably going to need, you know, a hardscape of some sort, you know, for our cars or for a little patio. This is just really an alternative that with a little bit of thinking ahead, it can be done quite easily. You know, we have the technology, we just need to use it, and it will really help our stormwater. And so lawns, you know, we love an open space, we just do. And we do ask that people try to minimize their lawn. I mean, I love my open spaces. So we just ask that people, when you are, planning out your landscaping, that you reduce your lawn area. Be a grower, not a mower. Lawns are high maintenance. They use lots of water, and by minimizing your lawn space, you reduce chemicals and fertilizers and fungicides and pesticides to maintain it. Lawn takes maintenance. Mowing, is something you can't get around. It contributes to carbon emissions and noise pollution. It leaves oil and gas residues, which seep into our groundwater. And if you are mowing, consider grass mulching, which is leaving the grass clippings. That will help build the soil naturally. It will help it, when you build the soil like that, it helps it to absorb more water and conserves water in the long run. You don't have, it stays greener and it saves time. You don't have to dump those bags of grass. And so I just want to put it out there that green is the new brown. I mean, brown is the new green. Sorry there. Brown is the new green. And, lawns are perennials. They will bounce back. They're a perennial plant, and it's okay if they go brown. They will green up very quickly. Lawn alternatives. Now, there's a lot of lawn alternatives out there, or it's called eco-turf. There's lots of different names for lawn alternatives. Some of the alternatives are listed here: turf grass, clover, yarrow, English daisy, sweet alyssum, Roman chamomile. This will have to be mowed maybe once or twice in the season. And almost all eco-turf or lawn alternatives are not as hardy as lawn. So they really are great in areas where there's not high traffic. If you are going to be planting a high traffic lawn area, there are seed mixes out there. It is the one time I recommend using non-native seed mix that are low maintenance, low grow, low water seed mixes. And that's what you want to plant for your lawn. But if you have areas where that can do eco-turf, I mean, this is great. It provides pollinator opportunities, and it's just beautiful. It's just an alternative to lawn. You can also plant meadows, and we'll go into the different meadow species at the next webinar, but those do take quite a bit of maintenance as well, meadows, to keep them established. And septics and drain fields. So for the septics and drain fields, you can plant on top of them. We recommend no deep rooted plants, minimize soil disturbance, minimize soil compaction. Drain fields need air to function properly, so you don't want to compact the soil. You don't want to run your livestock or horses over them. And a lot of people will, like, I know several people in Squim, they plant lavender. It's a nice shallow rooted plant. They plant lavender over them. And, just, you really need to know where your drain fields are and your septics. Set your trees and large shrubs back at least 30 feet to protect them. And, we'll go more into the different species that go on top of drain fields in the next one, when I get really in depth about different plants and their conditions. And I just want to mention fire-wise landscaping. It's not as big of a deal for us here in the Northwest, but if we lived in California, it'd be a really big deal. And there's some guidelines for fire-wise landscaping. The closer to the house, you want things more widely spaced, and smaller the plants should be. And as you move away from the house, You want to have clusters and islands of plants, not large continuous masses of plants that can where the fire can just go on and on and on, but you want to break it up. Break it up with, you know, walkways and pathways. And, you know, if prioritize, you know, during drought times, it's just, you just want to prioritize the plants that you do want to save. You don't want to go around watering everything just because it's usually such a, you know, high water usage during the high heat. Be really careful, be selective about what you plant. All the more reason to mulch, and which conserves moisture around the plants and reduces the weed growth while you're at it. And you want to avoid a lot of pine bark and little sticks and things around the house, basically keeping the house area clean right around the house. This is just a visual of what the Firewise landscaping would look like. Real clean around the house, low growing plants right around the house. Going out a little further, having little clumps or short trees that will not reach the house. And as you get further away, you get the larger and more wild areas as well. So just a little picture of what Firewise landscaping looks like. So one of the main reasons why we promote native plants in the landscape is for water conservation. Our water resources are at critical levels right now, especially in the Sequim area where we only get 17 inches of rainfall a year on average. And so we promote a lot of water conservation ideas. We, like I've talked about, we ask that you let your lawn go seasonally brown because brown is the new green. And we advocate mulch, mulch, mulch. Mulching will hold in the moisture, and you have to water a lot less when you mulch. Really easy to mulch. And we do advocate for drip irrigation like this right down here. And that helps to save water and just really helps to get the water only where you need it. We just ask that you don't even waste one drop of water. Like it's to that point. And I love this picture here. I got this picture of the glaciers off of the Olympic National Park website. And this is one of the glaciers, Lillian Glacier. And it shows it over 90 years, how much it has disappeared. And our glaciers are our water storage system, nature's water storage system, one of them, and they're disappearing. We've had 119 glaciers disappear from the Olympic National Park within the last 100 years. So, you know, take a look at the Olympic National Park website at their glaciers. They have a ton of pictures like this side by side. It just gives you a good understanding of what's happening to our water and water resources. And irrigation water is limited. This is a map that shows the Sequim area. It shows the Dungeness Water Rule Area. The Dungeness Water Rule Area is an area where people who have permit exempt wells after 2013 need to get mitigation packages to use water from Washington Water Trust. We also hand out meters for any permit exempt wells to meter the amount of water that we're using. And so this usually applies to, at this point, people who are building properties. They'll have to work with us to get your occupancy permit. You need to have a meter on your well. This just helps us to see what kind of water we're using and where we can conserve water in the future. And this is another reason why we conserve water. It's for our endangered fish. We have many ESA listed species in this area. We have our two main watersheds, Elwha River and Dungeness River. And the protected and ESA listed fish are Chinook, steelhead, bull trout, and summer chum. I don't have that on there. And most of the other stocks of salmon and trout are declining. And these rivers also hold Pacific lamprey, which is a fish species, which is a candidate for being listed on the Endangered Species Act list. So being a candidate means that they're just gathering more information and doing population studies. There's not enough known about them right now. All of these fish inhabit both of these rivers, and they are protected when the rivers get low flows. The Dungeness River has a long history of getting very low flows in the summertime, and it's dangerously low for the ESA listed fish. So yeah, they're completely protected. We promote rainwater harvesting. And when you look at your precipitation, average monthly precipitation by inches, you would harvest the rainwater during the rainy season and store it in these cisterns here, or this type of cistern here. Here is a lady who is harvesting rainwater right off of her gutters, and it's going into the cistern. And it'll be used, gosh, I believe this one is used for stock water, which is watering her livestock, her horse and cattle here. And she uses it during these hot months, June, July, August, September. But you want to capture your water during the winter when it is rainy and the rain is abundant. And really, to get a good amount of water, you need to have large cisterns. These are 1,000-gallon cisterns to get enough water to take you through these hot summer months. A rain garden is something that you can put in, and rain gardens help to soak up rainwater, and they act as filters. They clean the water. They help with stormwater runoff. And this is kind of what a rain garden looks like. Here is a cross section of a rain garden. You plant water loving plants here, and then it is filled with sand and gravel so that the rain, as it comes down, it has a pooling area, has an area to stop and then soak into the native soils. Like I said, when it starts raining and raining hard, it goes so fast and it can't soak into our native soils fast enough. Having little gardens like this helps to filter it, and it goes down and it can replenish our aquifers, our water aquifers. And yeah, and here's a picture of a couple rain gardens. Right here, the top picture, you can have, there's a culvert going right into the rain garden. Instead of funneling that rain down by a curb down to be treated, you know, in a sewer system, it goes right in here and it waters this garden. And these are water loving plants. And as you know, notice there's no curb here. So you've got pavement here where the cars are, and the water can just run right off past this grass filter strip and into the rain garden area and sit there and soak into the native soils. So yeah, rain gardens are a really great thing if you have an area in your property that, you know, is ponding up and you notice that it's, you know, catching a lot of rain. You should put it in as a great spot for a rain garden. So there's so many reasons why we need to plant our native plants. You know, we could just go on and on about this for a long time. And part of it is that it creates habitat and it creates food resources for our birds. We'll just take our birds right now. There have been great losses in our songbirds. 2.9 billion is estimated to have been lost since 1970. So, you know, birds need a lot of insects and caterpillars to raise their young, and our native plants feed our native birds. There's a lot of things you can do to help our birds and our songbirds, such as like keeping your cat indoors, growing native plants or using native plants, avoiding pesticides. things like that. Yeah, so this is just a big concern that our songbirds are disappearing. Native plants depend on the native animals, and the native animals depend on the native plants. They just depend on each other. So birds need, when they're raising their young, they need a ton of caterpillars to feed their young. Doug Tellamy, who is an ecologist, he did a bunch of surveys and monitoring on plant-bird interactions, and he found that chickadees, when raising just a small clutch of chickadees, hatchlings, they need 5,000 caterpillars or more to raise that clutch of birds. So that's pretty big. You know, our birds, they need those soft-bodied insects. Now the birds will eat the seeds and stuff, but to actually raise their young, they need these soft-bodied insects. And our pollinators also, the rest of our pollinators, you know, birds can be pollinators, but we have the rest of our pollinators. You know, we need our native plants for our pollinators. Many things contribute to pollinator decline. Loss of habitat is definitely huge. That's why creating any sort of habitat on your property is so important, to just like have that food resource and that refuge area for our pollinators. You know, but there's all sorts of things such as mites and fungal pathogens. They have a lot against them: chemicals and pesticides, loss of habitat, loss of genetic diversity, and of course, climate changes. So we want to do everything we can to just help them out. There's so much against them right now, and if we can just help them out in any way. These are the two pollinators in our area, the western bumblebee and the checker spot butterfly, two that are in our area that are of concern. The western bumblebee has had huge declines. You know, it's kind of hard to track insects and monitor them, and, you know, but they definitely are on a huge decline. It's like the songbirds. They're just going down, down, down. Their population is. So creating habitat for them and food resources is super important. So just to kind of recap, 10 natural landscaping tips. Define your objectives, make your dream list. What do you want from your landscape? Get to know your site, embrace it, adapt to it. You know, maybe it's not as sunny as you want it, but hey, there's a lot you can do. You want to preserve any existing trees and shrubs that are native. Limit your lawn area. And when you go to plant, you want to match your plants to your site conditions. That's why it's really important to do that overall analysis of your site conditions. In general, when planting, you should plant your dominant plants first, like the first year. You don't have to plant everything the first year. You know, you want to plant that canopy layer or those bigger plants first, and then fill in with all the understory and things throughout the years. Definitely plant pollinator plants, you know, really consider pollinator plants and low water plants, and leave natural mulches. You know, when leaves fall, leave them. That's great mulch. Litter, leave that in place, and make wild spaces. We just need more habitat. You know, we're just trying to get away from those Home Depot landscaping yards, but try and make more wild spaces. So before next week, you should write out your vision, do your site analysis, get a base map, do that exercise with the video. And I can send that out afterwards because it won't be up on the website for about a week if you want to watch that video again. And do all your measurements, your slopes, your soils, your wind, and make sure you notice where your utilities are and your built infrastructure on the map. So do that before next week. And I just want to say thank you. We do have our native plant sale coming up. This is where you can buy bulk bare root plants We sell native plants very cost effectively. And the online store opens up the 23rd of November. So you can do online ordering there. And most of the plants in my presentations here we offer them for sale as well. So with that, I am just going to let you ask some questions. Or I will go over what's happening in the chat, unless anybody wants to unmute and just have at it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have about 2 acres here that I have let go wild.
Yeah.
It has been suggested to me that at least once in the fall, about now, I should mow that and let it grow up again in the spring. But I don't know, are there things that are, pollinators, bugs, whatever, living down in that I'd be better off letting it just sit? And it's all brown now, obviously. But should I mow it in the fall, or should I let it just sit there?
Boy, if you want it landscaped, if you're going to do stuff to it, like put more plants in, I would say mow it if that's what you want. Leave wild spaces though. Leave some space for the bees to overwinter, and the shrews and the mice. And boy, it really just depends on what you want to do with it in the future. If you're going to let it go wild, I would say let it go. Unless you've got invasive weeds, you might want to mow some of those down, and we will go into depth about invasive weeds. That's like a whole nother talk. But yeah.
Okay. Our intention is to have it wild. Obviously, a lot of the plants are there now because this was farmland ones. They're not native plants, but that's another issue. But if there are things wintering over in that area, then we'll just leave it be, because we don't want to landscape it. We want it wild.
Yeah, I would just let it be then. Building up that natural duff, and the little places where there's little brush heaps and stuff are really great for overwintering for our little pollinators and animals that do overwinter. So
we do worry a little bit about the fire danger in the July, August period, because it's turned brown then. And, I have neighbors who burn, trash in the backyard.
Oh,
So,
wow. Yeah.
That's an issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Definitely. I mean, I say let places go wild. If your plan is to let them go wild, you do want to check your invasive weeds, but if they're going to go wild, I would say let it be. Okay. So I'm looking at the chat here, and it says rain garden. Our property is below grade and one corner is soggy during the winter, but not in the summer months. Wouldn't water loving plants die in the summer? So that is something about rain gardens that, you can plant. There's plants that can handle both, that can handle real wet and real dry. Things like snowberry right there on the screen is a really great one to plant also. So yeah, I have seen that problem where water loving plants do die in the summer. Sometimes rain gardens, they are your gardens. They will need to be mulched and watered in the summer. But yeah, you really need to find depending on, now that you know that it dries up in the summer, you can choose different plants accordingly. Not like super water loving plants. And so I'm going to move on. So we are allowed to harvest rainwater in Clallam County. Yes, we are. Yep. Megan, do you know any more about that? Like some of the rules about that?
Off the top of my head, I don't, but if you go to Department of Ecology, their website has some good information on that. So typically what I do when I'm trying to look over the rules for that, I just type in Department of Ecology rainwater harvesting. in a Google search or something of that nature, and that should pop up with all the restrictions. I can't remember, they used to have it limited by gallons, but I'm not sure if they still do, so it'd be good to look that
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, we are allowed. It's just, I know there are restrictions. I need to brush up on that, and they are changing. So yeah, definitely look into those rules. So are there any other questions that you have? Oops. Stop share. Anybody else? Okay, well, thank you so much for coming today. And let's see, our next webinar is Thursday the 10th, 1 to 3. That's where I'm going to really get into each individual plant, the right plant for the right place. We're going to talk about water loving plants, dry plants, trees, everything like that. Really kind of dig deep into some botany there. On Monday, the 14th, from 10 to 12, we have a plant walk at the Peninsula College. And that one is really great. It's ADA accessible. So, and there's benches to sit down on. And so that'll be a great spot. We can take a look at some native plants in the landscape. And then Tuesday, the 15th, 1 to 3, is our last webinar, and planting and planting problems, planting techniques, and then pests and problems and deer and all sorts of drought and how to deal with all the problems. So, and then Wednesday the 16th is it's a plant walk, it's more of a plant hike for people who are a little bit more adventurous at Aldwell Lake Bed. And that will be a lot of botany and looking at a lot of winter botany because things are losing their leaves quickly here. So you'll be able to see a lot of plants there. So thank you. I'll send out the video to everyone so you can watch that again, so you can really get your base map for next week. So thanks, everyone. There's no more questions.
And I did put a link in the chat to rainwater harvesting information. Maybe you can add that to your email when you send it out as well for folks.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a good afternoon.